The day has ended. Whatever you carried with you, the weight of tasks, the noise of voices, the pull of tomorrow, you can set it down now. There is nothing you need to solve tonight, nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to become. You are here, and that is enough. Let your body find its place. Let the pillow hold the weight of your head. Let the blanket settle around you like the air settles around a mountain at dusk. You don't need to force anything. Just allow yourself to be held. Your breath can slow now. There's no rhythm you need to follow, no pattern you need to create. Just let your lungs fill and empty the way they know how, the way they've been doing since you were born. Trust that. Tonight I have a few stories to share with you. They come from the mountains, from temples tucked into valleys where the mist rises slow and the bells ring only when the wind is right. These are not grand tales. They are small, quiet moments. Stories of monks who walked alone, of tea brewed in silence, of lessons learned by watching the way snow falls or the way a river bends. There is no hurry in these stories. They will unfold the way evening light fades, gently, without announcement. And if you drift away before they end, that is exactly as it should be. The stories will continue without you, the way the river continues to flow, whether anyone is watching or not. So close your eyes if you haven't already. Let your jaw unclench. Let your tongue rest in your mouth. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears just a little. There's nothing to grip, nothing to hold on to. There was once a young monk who lived in a temple high in the mountains. The temple was small, built of weathered wood and stone, and it sat on a ledge overlooking a valley so deep that clouds would settle into it like water in a basin. From the courtyard, you could look down and see nothing but white, an ocean of mist that filled the space between the peaks. The monk's name was Kozen, and he had come to the temple 3 winters before, seeking something he could not name. He had grown up in a coastal town where the streets were crowded and the air smelled of salt and fish. His father was a merchant, his mother a weaver. They had expected him to take over the family business, to marry, to continue the line. But Kosen had felt a restlessness he couldn't explain, a sense that there was something else, something quieter, waiting for him. So one autumn morning, when he was 20 years old, he had packed a small bag, left a note for his parents, and walked inland. He walked for weeks, sleeping in fields and barns, eating rice balls he bought in villages along the way. He didn't know where he was going. He only knew he needed to go. When he reached the mountains, something in him settled. The air was thinner here, colder. The sky seemed wider. He followed a path that led up and up, through forests of pine and cedar, past streams that ran clear and fast over smooth stones. And then one afternoon, as he rounded a bend in the trail, he saw it, the temple. It was smaller than he had imagined a temple would be, just a cluster of wooden buildings with sloped roofs surrounded by a low stone wall. Prayer flags hung from the eaves, their colors faded by sun and rain. Smoke rose from a chimney, the sound of a bell, soft and deep, drifted down the path toward him. He stood there for a long time, looking up at it. Then he climbed the last stretch of path and knocked on the gate. An old monk answered. His face was lined and weathered, his head shaved smooth. He looked at Kosen for a long moment, saying nothing. Then he stepped aside and gestured for Kosen to enter. That was how Kosen came to live at the temple. The temple was home to only 5 monks, including the abbot, an old man named Risan who moved slowly and spoke even more slowly. Risan's voice was like the sound of stones shifting in a streambed, low, unhurried, always present, but never imposing. He had been at the temple for 40 years, longer than anyone else. Some said he had been born in the valley below and had climbed to the temple as a boy. Others said he had come from a distant province, fleeing some great sorrow, but no one asked, and Raisan never said. The other monks were quiet men, each absorbed in his own practice. There was Gentoku, who tended the garden and rarely spoke. There was Hoseki, who spent his days copying sutras in careful, elegant script. There was Myoshin, the youngest besides Kosen, who had arrived only a year before and still struggled with the long hours of meditation. Kosen's days were simple. He woke before dawn, when the sky was still black and the stars were sharp as pins. He would rise from his mat, splash cold water on his face, and join the others in the main hall for morning meditation. They would sit in rows facing the wall as the darkness outside slowly gave way to grey, then blue, then gold. After meditation, there was breakfast: rice, pickled vegetables, miso soup. They ate in silence, the only sounds the scrape of chopsticks against bowls, the quiet slurp of tea. Then the work began. Kosen's task was to sweep the courtyard, to carry water from the spring, to gather firewood from the forest below. In the afternoons he would sit in meditation again, or study the sutras, or help Gentoku in the garden, pulling weeds and watering the rows of radishes and greens. In the evenings, they gathered in the main hall once more. Risan would light a stick of incense, and they would sit together as the smoke curled upward, thin and grey. Sometimes Risan would speak, his voice soft and measured, telling stories from the old teachings. Sometimes he would say nothing at all, and they would simply sit, listening to the wind move through the pines, listening to the distant sound of water running over rocks. It was a life of great simplicity, and yet Kosen struggled. He had come to the mountains to find peace, but peace eluded him. His mind was restless. During meditation, he could not sit still. His legs ached, his back hurt. His thoughts raced about the village he had left behind, about his parents, about whether he had made the right choice. He thought about the future, about whether he would ever feel the calm that seemed to radiate so easily from Risan and the others. He tried to push the thoughts away, to force his mind to be still, but the harder he tried, the louder the thoughts became. One evening, after the others had gone to sleep, Kosen sat alone on the temple steps. The night was cool and the stars were so bright they seemed to hum. He could hear the wind moving through the pines below, a long, slow exhale that never seemed to end. He could hear the faint trickle of the stream that ran alongside the temple, the sound of water finding its way over stones. He felt defeated. He had been at the temple for 3 years, and he still had not found what he was looking for. He still could not quiet his mind. He still felt the same restlessness he had felt in the coastal town, the same sense that something was missing. Risan appeared beside him, his footsteps so soft that Kosen hadn't heard him approach. The old monk said nothing. He simply sat down on the step, folding his hands in his lap, and looked out at the valley. The mist had settled in for the night, and the valley was invisible, a dark absence between the peaks. They sat in silence for a long time. Kosen could feel the presence of the old man beside him, solid and calm, like a stone that had been sitting in the same place for centuries. Finally, Kosen spoke. His voice was quiet, almost apologetic. "Master, I don't know if I belong here. I try to be still, but my mind won't stop. I try to let go, but I keep holding on. Maybe I'm not meant for this life." Risan nodded slowly. He did not look at Kosen. He continued to gaze out at the darkness, at the faint silver line of the river far below, visible only as a pale thread in the moonlight. "Do you hear the wind?" Risan asked. Kosen listened. The wind was there, constant, moving through the trees in long, slow waves. "Yes," he said. "Does it try to be wind?" Kosen paused, unsure how to answer. "No, I suppose not. It just is." "Does it hold itself still when it wants to move?" "No." "Does it force itself to move when it wants to rest?" "No." Risan smiled, just barely, the corners of his mouth lifting almost imperceptibly. The wind doesn't fight with itself. It moves when it moves. It rests when it rests. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wonder if it's doing it right. It simply is. Kosen frowned, trying to understand. "But I want to be calm. I want to stop thinking so much. Isn't that the point of all this? To find peace?" Risan turned to look at him for the first time. His eyes were dark and deep, like wells. "That wanting," he said gently, "is also the wind. Let it move through you. Don't try to stop it. Don't try to hold it. Just notice it, the way you notice the trees swaying." Kosen opened his mouth to respond, but Risan raised a hand, stopping him. "You think peace is something you find, but peace is not a place you arrive at. It's not a state you achieve. It's what remains when you stop fighting." They sat together until the cold drove them inside. Kosen did not feel suddenly calm. His mind was still churning, still full of questions, but something in him had shifted, just a little. He had heard the wind before, countless times, but tonight he had listened to it differently. The next morning, he woke before dawn, as always. He splashed cold water on his face, the shock of it bringing him fully awake. He joined the others in the main hall and sat facing the wall. His mind wandered almost immediately. Thoughts came and went, memories of his childhood, worries about the future, a fleeting image of his mother's face. But this time, he did not fight them. He let them move through him, the way the wind moves through the valley. And in the spaces between thoughts, in the brief pauses when one thought ended and another had not yet begun, he found something he had not noticed before. Stillness was not the absence of movement, it was the presence of space. Days passed, then weeks. Kosen continued his routines, sweeping the courtyard, carrying water, gathering wood. His mind continued to churn, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, he began to notice the moments when his thoughts quieted on their own. He noticed the feeling of cold water on his hands when he washed the rice. He noticed the weight of the firewood on his back as he carried it up the mountain path. He noticed the way sunlight touched the stone path in the afternoon, turning it gold. One morning, he was walking down the mountain to gather wood when he saw a bird perched on a low branch. It was small, grey, unremarkable, just a little mountain sparrow, the kind he had seen 1,000 times. But it sat so still, so completely at ease that Kosen stopped walking. He stood there breathing quietly and watched the bird. It did not fidget. It did not look around anxiously. It simply sat, its small chest rising and falling with each breath, being exactly what it was. Kosen felt something open inside him. The bird wasn't trying to be peaceful. It wasn't meditating. It wasn't seeking enlightenment. It was just sitting on a branch, alive, present, complete. He smiled. He bowed to the bird. a small, instinctive gesture of gratitude. Then he continued down the path, the bundle of firewood growing heavier on his back, his breath steady and slow. That evening, Rizan asked him, "Did you find what you were looking for today?" Kosen thought for a moment. Then he said, "I don't think I was looking for anything. I just walked." Rizan nodded, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Good." And the temple bell rang, once, clear and soft, as the sun slipped behind the ridge and the first stars began to appear in the deepening blue sky. Far from the mountains, in a village at the edge of a wide river, there lived an old woman who made tea. Her name was Fumiko, and her tea house was a small wooden building with a sloped roof and a single window that faced the water. The building was old, older than Fumiko herself, and the wood had turned grey with age, smooth and soft to the touch. Inside, there were only 4 low tables, each worn from years of use, and a shelf lined with jars of tea leaves, green tea, roasted barley, chrysanthemum, jasmine, oolong. Fumiko had run the tea house for 40 years. She had inherited it from her mother, who had inherited it from her mother before that. The tea house had been in the family for 3 generations, and in all that time, it had never changed. The same tables, the same shelf, the same iron kettle that sat on the same hearth. Fumiko had no family now, no husband, no children. She had been married once, long ago, but her husband had died young, drowned in the river during a spring flood. They had been married only 2 years. After his death, she had devoted herself to the tea house, rising each morning before the sun, boiling water, preparing for the day. The village was quiet. Most people worked in the fields or in the small workshops along the main road. Weavers, potters, blacksmiths. They came to Fumiko's tea house in the early morning or late afternoon, seeking a moment of rest. She never spoke much. When they entered, she would greet them with a small nod, barely perceptible, and then disappear into the back room. A few minutes later, she would return with a cup of tea, setting it down gently in front of them, the surface of the liquid perfectly still. Then she would return to her place by the window, sitting on a low stool, watching the river move past. The river was wide and slow, its surface dark and smooth. In the mornings, mist would rise from it, and the far bank would disappear into white. In the afternoons, the light would turn the water gold. In the evenings, it would turn black, reflecting the first stars. People said Fumiko made the best tea in the region. Travelers would sometimes come from distant towns, having heard rumors of the old woman whose tea could calm even the most restless heart. But when they asked her secret, she would only smile, a small, private smile, and say, "I just use water and leaves." One autumn, a young man came to the village. His name was Daiichi, and he had traveled from the city, where he had worked as a clerk in a trading house. He had spent his days bent over ledgers, recording transactions, calculating profits and losses. The work had been steady, well-paying, but it had left him feeling hollow. He felt like a machine, performing the same tasks over and over, his life reduced to numbers on a page. So one day, without telling anyone, he had quit. He had packed a small bag, left his apartment, and started walking. He didn't know where he was going. He only knew he needed to find something real, something he could do with his hands, something that would make him feel alive. He walked for weeks, stopping in villages along the way, asking if anyone needed help. He tried working for a blacksmith, but the heat and noise of the forge overwhelmed him. He tried working for a carpenter, but the precision required, the need to measure everything exactly, to cut each joint perfectly, exhausted him. He tried working for a potter, but his hands were clumsy, and every bowl he made cracked in the kiln. He began to feel hopeless. Maybe he wasn't meant to do anything with his hands. Maybe he was only good for ledgers and numbers. One evening, frustrated and uncertain, he wandered into Fumiko's tea house. He had passed it several times during his stay in the village but had never gone in. Now, with nowhere else to go, he pushed open the door and stepped inside. The space was dim and warm. A small fire burned in the hearth, and the air smelled faintly of wood smoke and tea. There was no one else there. Daiichi sat at one of the low tables and waited. Fumiko emerged from the back room. She was small, her back slightly bent, her hair white and tied in a simple knot. She looked at him with dark, calm eyes and said nothing. Then she turned and disappeared again. A few minutes later, she returned with a cup of tea. The cup was simple, unglazed clay, slightly rough to the touch. The tea inside was pale green, almost translucent. Steam rose from it in thin, wavering lines. The scent was faint, grassy, clean, with a hint of something sweet. Daiichi lifted the cup to his lips and drank. The tea was hot, but not too hot. It had a delicate flavor, subtle, almost elusive. He couldn't quite name it, but as he drank, something inside him began to settle. The tightness in his chest loosened. His shoulders, which had been hunched up near his ears, dropped. He felt his breath deepen. He sat there for a long time, holding the empty cup, watching the light fade over the river through the window. The water turned from gold to grey to black. Fumiko sat by the window, unmoving, her hands folded in her lap. When Daiichi finally stood to leave, he bowed to her. "Thank you," he said quietly. She nodded. He returned the next day, and the day after that. Each time, Fumiko prepared his tea in silence, and each time, Daiichi felt something settle inside him. The restlessness that had driven him from the city, the sense of being lost, began to fade, replaced by something he couldn't quite name. A sense of presence, of being here, now, in this moment. After a week, he worked up the courage to ask, "Would you teach me?" Fumiko looked at him for a long moment. Her face was unreadable. Then she nodded once. And so Daiichi became her apprentice. At first, he thought he would learn the secret techniques, the way to select leaves, the temperature of the water, the timing of the pour. But Fumiko did not teach him any of that. Instead, on his first day, she handed him a broom. "Sweep," she said, so he swept. He swept the floor of the tea house, the wooden planks worn smooth by decades of footsteps. He swept carefully, methodically, making sure to get into the corners, under the tables. When he finished, Fumiko inspected his work with a glance, then handed him a cloth. "Wash the cups." He washed the cups. There were only a dozen or so, each one slightly different, some clay, some porcelain, some chipped, some smooth. He washed each one carefully, drying it with the cloth, setting it back on the shelf. When he finished, Fumiko nodded. "Good, come back tomorrow." The next day, he swept again and washed the cups again. Then he wiped down the tables. The day after that, the same, and the day after that. Weeks passed. Daiichi grew impatient. He had come here to learn to make tea, not to be a cleaner. But whenever he opened his mouth to ask, something in Fumiko's presence stopped him. She moved with such quiet purpose, such unhurried grace, that he felt ashamed of his impatience. So he kept sweeping. He kept washing. He kept wiping. and slowly, without noticing, he began to change. The act of sweeping became meditative. He noticed the way the bristles of the broom whispered across the floor. He noticed the pattern of the wood grain, the small knots and whirls. He noticed the way dust gathered in certain corners, the way light came through the window at different times of day. Washing the cups became a ritual. He learned to feel the weight of each one, the texture of the clay or porcelain under his fingers. He learned to rinse them thoroughly, to dry them so that no water spots remained. He began to appreciate the small differences between them. This one slightly heavier, that one with a rougher glaze. One morning, after 2 months had passed, Fumiko handed him a jar of tea leaves. "Make tea for me," she said. Daiichi's hands trembled slightly. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for. He measured the leaves carefully, the way he had watched her do countless times. He heated the water, checking the temperature with the back of his hand. When it was ready, he poured slowly, watching the leaves unfurl in the water, releasing their color and scent. He waited the proper amount of time, then poured the tea into a cup and brought it to her. Fumiko lifted the cup and sipped. Her face remained expressionless. She set the cup down. "It's good," she said, "but you're thinking too much." Daiichi frowned. "What do you mean? When you sweep, do you think about sweeping?" He paused, considering. "No, I just sweep. When you wash the cups, I just wash them. Then just make tea." Something clicked. Daiichi realized that all the sweeping, all the washing, all the waiting, it had not been preparation. It had been the teaching itself. He had learned to move without thinking, to act without forcing, to be present in each small task. The tea was no different. He made tea again. This time, he did not measure carefully. He did not obsess over the temperature. He simply moved, allowing his hands to do what they had learned, trusting the knowledge that had settled into his body over weeks of practice. When Fumiko tasted it, she smiled, a real smile, warm and approving. "Better," she said. Daiichi stayed in the village. He worked alongside Fumiko for many years, learning not just how to make tea, but how to be present, how to find the sacred in the simple. Eventually, when Fumiko grew too old to manage the tea house, he took over. She moved into the back room, spending her days sitting by the window, watching the river. People still came for the tea. They still said it was the best in the region. And when they asked Daiichi the secret, he would smile, a small, private smile just like Fumiko, and say, "I just use water and leaves." And outside, the river continued to flow, slow and dark and steady, the same as it always had, the same as it always would. Far to the north, where the mountains turn white for half the year, there was a monastery built into the side of a cliff. It was difficult to reach. Pilgrims had to climb a narrow trail that switchbacked up the rock face, exposed to wind and weather. In winter, the path was often impassable, buried under snow, and the monastery would be cut off from the world for months at a time. But those who made the journey found a place of deep quiet. The monastery was home to 12 monks, all of whom had taken vows of silence. They communicated through gestures, through the ringing of bells, through the tasks they shared. They grew vegetables in a small terraced garden carved into the mountainside. Hardy greens, radishes, turnips that could survive the short growing season. They collected snowmelt in wooden barrels. They sat together in meditation each morning and each evening, their breath rising in white clouds in the cold air. The main hall was simple, a large room with a stone floor and wooden beams blackened by years of smoke from the fire pit in the center. There were no decorations, no statues, nothing to distract from the practice. Just the walls, the floor, the cushions arranged in neat rows, and the silence. Among the 12 monks was a man named Shugen. He had come to the monastery as a young man fleeing a life of grief. His wife had died in childbirth, and the child had died with her. He had held his wife's hand as she slipped away, had held his daughter who had never drawn breath, and something inside him had broken. He had been unable to bear the emptiness that followed. The house they had shared became unbearable. Every corner reminded him of her. The bed where she had slept, the loom where she had woven cloth, the small cradle he had built with his own hands waiting empty. So he had walked away. He had walked north into the mountains without plan or destination. He walked until he could walk no more, and when he looked up he saw the monastery clinging to the cliff face like a bird's nest. He had been there for 15 years. Shugen was known among the other monks for his stillness. When he sat in meditation, he did not move, not even when the cold bit into his skin, not even when his legs ached, not even when hours passed. He could sit from dawn until midday without shifting, his breath so slow and quiet that it seemed he might not be breathing at all. The others respected him. They saw his discipline, his dedication. They thought he had achieved what they were all striving for, perfect stillness, perfect peace. But they were wrong. Inside, Shugen was not still. Inside, he carried the weight of his loss like a stone lodged in his chest. He had come to the mountains to escape it, but it had followed him. At night, when the wind howled against the monastery walls, shaking the shutters, he would lie awake on his mat, staring into the darkness, remembering. He remembered his wife's voice, the way she laughed. He remembered the way her hand felt in his, small and warm. He remembered the curve of her belly in the last months, the way she would place his hand there so he could feel the baby kick. He had thought that if he meditated long enough, deeply enough, the pain would dissolve. But it never did. It remained a constant presence, heavy and cold. One winter, a new monk arrived at the monastery. His name was Kaio, and he was young, maybe 25, with an open face and bright eyes. Unlike the others who carried an air of solemnity, Kaio seemed unburdened. He smiled easily. He hummed while he worked, a soft, wordless melody. He seemed to move through the world lightly, as if he had never known sorrow. Shugen found Kaio's presence unsettling. How could someone be so light? How could someone live without carrying the weight of the world? It seemed almost disrespectful, almost naive. One evening, after the meditation session had ended and the others had retired to their cells, Shugen found Kaio sitting outside on the stone steps that led down from the main hall. The sun had just set and the sky was a deep, cold blue. The peaks around them glowed faintly pink in the last light, then faded to grey. Shugen hesitated, then sat beside him. They sat in silence for a while, their breath visible in the cold air. Finally, Shugen gestured. A simple question formed with his hands. "Why are you so happy?" Kaio looked at him for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. Then he gestured back, his hands moving slowly, deliberately. "I am not always happy, but I do not fight the sadness when it comes." Shugen frowned. He gestured again, more urgently. "I have tried to let go, but I cannot." Kaio smiled gently. He looked around, then reached down and scooped up a handful of snow from the steps. He held it in his palm, and they both watched as it began to melt immediately, water pooling in the creases of his skin. He held it until the snow was almost gone, until only water remained, cold and clear. Then he opened his hand and let the water drip through his fingers back onto the ground where it would freeze again by morning. He looked at Shugen and gestured. "You are holding snow. Let it melt. Let it return." Shugen stared at his own hands, clenched into fists on his knees. He had been gripping so tightly for so long that he had forgotten what it felt like to let go. That night, he sat in meditation in his cell. The monastery was silent except for the wind. He closed his eyes and, instead of trying to push the grief away as he had done for 15 years, he let it come. He remembered his wife. He remembered his daughter. He let the sorrow rise, and he did not fight it. He let it fill him, let it move through him like water, like wind. And as he sat there, something strange happened. The grief did not disappear, but it changed. It became softer, less solid. It became part of the air around him, no longer a stone in his chest, but a presence he could breathe with. He wept silently in the dark. Tears ran down his face and froze on his cheeks. And when dawn came, pale and cold, he felt lighter than he had in 15 years. Spring arrived slowly in the mountains. The snow began to melt, trickling down the cliffs in thin streams. The path down the mountain became passable again. Green shoots appeared in the garden, and one morning Shugen decided to leave the monastery. He packed a small bag, a change of clothes, a bowl, a blanket. He said goodbye to the other monks, bowing deeply to each of them. Kaio walked with him to the top of the trail, and there they stood together for a moment, looking out at the valley below, still white with snow, but beginning to show patches of brown and green. Shugen gestured, "Thank you." Kaio smiled. He gestured back. The snow was always going to melt. Shugen nodded. He understood now. He had been holding on to something that was never meant to be held. His wife, his daughter, they had been like snow, beautiful, precious, and temporary. And he had spent 15 years trying to keep them from melting, trying to preserve something that was always meant to return to the earth. He bowed one last time, then began the long walk down the mountain. He did not know what he would find in the world below. He did not know if he would return to his village or start a new life elsewhere, but he was no longer afraid. The grief was still with him, would always be with him, but it no longer weighed him down. It moved through him now, like wind, like water, and that was enough. Somewhere between the valley and the ridge, in a place where the path forks and the moss grows thick on the stones, there was a hermit who lived in a small hut made of pine logs and thatched grass. The hut sat in a clearing surrounded by ancient trees, their trunks so wide it would take 3 men with arms outstretched to encircle them. The light here was filtered green and gold, and the air smelled of earth and sap. No one knew the hermit's name. The villagers who occasionally passed his hut on their way to gather mushrooms or wild herbs called him the Silent One, though some simply called him the Old Man of the Ridge. He had lived there for as long as anyone could remember, longer than the oldest grandmother in the village, longer than anyone's memory reached. He did not come down to the village, he did not seek company, but once every few years, someone, usually a traveler or a young seeker, would find their way to his door. One such traveler was a woman named Ayame. She was in her 30s, thin and tired. With dark circles under her eyes, she had been walking for weeks, moving from town to town, carrying only a small pack and a walking stick worn smooth by her grip. She had no destination. She had left her home after her mother's death, unable to stay in the place where every corner, every object, every scent reminded her of what she had lost. Her mother had been sick for a long time, years. Ayame had cared for her, bathing her, feeding her, sitting with her through long nights of pain and confusion. And when her mother finally died, Ayame had felt not relief but a devastating emptiness. So she walked, hoping that motion would ease the ache, the distance would dull the sharpness of her grief. One afternoon, she found herself on a mountain path. She didn't remember deciding to come here. Her feet had simply carried her, following the trail as it wound upward through the forest. The air was cool, the light soft and golden. Birds called from the canopy above. A stream ran alongside the path, its water clear and cold. As the sun began to dip, casting long shadows through the trees, she came upon the hermit's hut. It appeared suddenly, as if it had materialized from the forest itself. Smoke rose from a small chimney. The door was open, just slightly. She hesitated at the edge of the clearing. Then she called out, "Hello." No answer. She stepped closer, her footsteps soft on the moss. "Is anyone here?" Still no answer. She approached the door and looked inside. The interior was simple, a single room with a mat on the floor, a low table, a small fire burning in a pit lined with stones. The hermit sat beside the fire, his back to her. He was very old, his hair white and long, his shoulders bent. He wore a simple robe, patched and faded. "Excuse me," Ayame said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm traveling. May I rest here for the night?" The hermit did not turn, but he raised one hand and gestured, a simple, unhurried movement that seemed to mean, "Come in." Ayame entered slowly, unsure. She set down her pack near the door and sat on the floor near the fire. The warmth was immediate, soaking into her bones. She hadn't realized how cold she had been. The hermit still did not look at her. He simply tended the fire, adding a small piece of wood, adjusting the logs with a stick, watching the flames. Ayame waited. When it became clear he would not speak, she said, "Thank you for letting me stay." The hermit nodded, still without turning. They sat in silence. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, a sound like distant waves. Ayame found herself relaxing, her breath slowing, her shoulders dropping. She had not felt this calm in months, maybe years. After a long time, the hermit reached for a pot that sat beside the fire. He ladled soup into a wooden bowl and handed it to her without a word. She accepted it with both hands, bowing slightly. The bowl was warm against her palms. She looked down at the soup, a simple broth with wild greens and a few small mushrooms. She lifted the bowl to her lips and drank. It tasted like the forest itself, earthy, clean, alive. She ate slowly, savoring each mouthful, and when she finished, she set the bowl down with a sense of deep gratitude. The hermit took the bowl and refilled it from the pot, handing it back to her. She ate again, more slowly this time, and when she was done, she felt full in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. They sat in silence as the fire burned low. Outside, night had fallen completely. The darkness was absolute, broken only by the faint glow of the fire. Finally, Ayame spoke. "Why do you live alone?" The hermit did not answer at first. She thought perhaps he hadn't heard or didn't want to answer. But then, in a voice so soft it was almost part of the wind, he said, "I live with everything." Ayame frowned, not understanding. "What do you mean?" The hermit gestured toward the open door. "Listen." She listened. She heard the wind moving through the branches. She heard the creak of the trees, old wood settling. She heard the distant call of an owl. She heard the fire crackling, the sound of embers shifting. She heard her own breath, slow and steady. "When you are alone," the hermit said, "you are not lonely. You are with the world." Ayame sat with those words. She had felt so alone since her mother died, so isolated, but sitting here, listening to the night, she realized she had been surrounded by presence all along. The sky, the trees, the wind, the earth beneath her feet. She had been so focused on what she had lost that she had stopped noticing what was still here. She stayed with the hermit for 3 days. They did not speak much. In the mornings, she helped him gather firewood from the forest floor, carrying bundles of dry branches back to the hut. In the afternoons, she sat by the stream and watched the water move over the rocks, the light catching on the surface, fracturing into 1,000 tiny reflections. In the evenings, they ate together by the fire, simple meals of rice and vegetables and broth. On the 3rd night, as they sat watching the flames, Ayame said, "I think I'm ready to go home." The hermit nodded. "Good." "But I'm afraid," she admitted. "I'm afraid the sadness will be too much. I'm afraid I won't be able to bear it." The hermit poked at the fire with a stick, sending up a small shower of sparks. "Sadness is like smoke," he said. "If you hold it inside, it chokes you. If you let it rise, it disappears into the sky." Ayame looked up. Above them, through the opening in the roof where the smoke escaped, she could see stars. Countless stars scattered across the darkness. She understood. The next morning, she packed her things. She bowed to the hermit deeply, holding the bow for a long time. He bowed in return, his movements slow and deliberate. As she walked down the path, she looked back once. He was standing in the doorway of the hut, watching her go. Then he turned and disappeared inside, and the forest swallowed the clearing as if it had never been there at all. She never saw him again, but she carried his words with her, and when the sadness came, as it did many times in waves that threatened to pull her under, she let it rise. She let it move through her and out of her like smoke rising into the wide open sky. And in time, the grief became something she could live with, not something that defined her, but something that moved through her, like wind, like water, like breath. The night has deepened now. The stars have moved across their paths, wheeling slowly through the darkness. The world has grown quieter still, settling into that deep silence that comes only in the hours before dawn. If you are still here, still listening, know that you don't need to hold on any longer. The stories have done their work. They have walked with you, step by step, breath by breath, into this stillness. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to think about, nothing left to solve or understand, only rest. Let your body sink a little deeper into the bed. Let the mattress hold you. Let the pillow cradle your head. Let the blanket settle around you like the earth settling at the end of a long day. Your breath can slow even more now. You don't need to count it. You don't need to control it. Just let it be, in and out, rising and falling, the way it has been since the moment you were born, the way it will continue effortlessly for as long as you need it. The mountains are still there, even if you can't see them. is nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to become. You are already exactly where you need to be. Sleep now. Let yourself go. Let the stories fade into the darkness. Let the words dissolve. Let the night carry you down, deeper and deeper into rest. And know that whatever you need, whatever comfort, whatever peace, will be here when you wake. Rest well, dear friend. The mountain does not hurry, the river does not rush, and neither do you. Welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Wherever you are in this moment, whatever weight you've been carrying, you can set it down now. This is a place of rest, a place of softness. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to prove, nothing you need to solve. Tonight we gather around the theme of gratitude, not the loud kind, not the performative kind, but the quiet gratitude that lives in the pauses, the kind that notices the warmth of tea, the color of evening light, the fact that breath continues without effort. This is the gratitude of monks and villagers, of wanderers and elders who have learned to see the world with soft eyes. Take a breath if you'd like. Let your body soften into whatever holds you. The pillow beneath your head, the blanket across your shoulders, the darkness that wraps around you like an old friend. Tonight I'll share with you several stories, some long, some shorter, all of them gentle. They come from mountain villages and riverside temples, from quiet encounters and slow realizations. There is no hurry in these stories, no urgency. They unfold the way mist moves through a valley, slowly, softly, without force. You don't need to follow every word. Let the stories wash over you like water over stones. If you drift away, that's exactly right. If sleep finds you halfway through a sentence, then the story has done its work, so settle now. Let your eyes close if they haven't already. Let your jaw soften, your shoulders drop, your breath slow to its own rhythm. The night is kind, the stories are waiting, and we begin. There was once a monk who lived in a temple so high in the mountains that clouds would drift through the courtyard in the morning. His name was Sohen, though few people knew it. He was not famous, he did not teach large gatherings or write scrolls that would be passed down through generations. He simply lived at the temple, tending the garden, sweeping the stone paths, and sitting in meditation each dawn before the sun broke over the ridge. The temple itself was old, its wooden beams had darkened with age, and the roof tiles were covered in soft green moss. In the spring, cherry blossoms would fall across the steps like snow. In the winter, the silence was so complete you could hear individual snowflakes landing on the pine branches. Sohen had been at this temple for 30 years. He had arrived as a young man, restless and searching, and had simply never left. Over time, the restlessness had faded, the searching had quieted. What remained was a kind of gentle attentiveness, a way of moving through the day as though each moment were a guest to be honored. Each morning before dawn, Sohen would wake and light a single stick of incense at the altar. The smoke would curl upward in the darkness, barely visible. Then he would sit. His meditation was not complicated. He simply sat with his breath, with the coolness of the air, with the distant sound of a stream running somewhere below the temple grounds. One autumn morning, as he sat in the pre-dawn darkness, he became aware of a sound. It was faint at first, a rustling, a soft scraping. He opened his eyes and saw, in the dim light, a small mouse making its way across the wooden floor of the meditation hall. The mouse moved slowly, cautiously, its tiny nose twitching. It seemed to be searching for something, perhaps a stray grain of rice, a crumb left from the evening meal. Sohan watched without moving. The mouse came closer, unaware of him in the shadows. It stopped near his cushion, sat back on its haunches, and groomed its face with its small paws. Sohan felt something shift in his chest, a warmth, a recognition. This mouse too was trying to live. It too woke in the darkness and sought what it needed. It too moved through the world with care and caution. He stayed very still until the mouse finished its grooming and scurried away into a gap in the wall. Then Sohan bowed just slightly toward the place where the mouse had been, a gesture of thanks for the reminder, for the company, for the way the mouse had trusted the stillness enough to rest, even for a moment. That day, as Sohan went about his tasks, he found himself noticing more. The way the broom handle fit his hands, worn smooth by years of use. The sound of water pouring from the wooden ladle into the stone basin. The scent of earth in the garden where he knelt to pull a few weeds. Each thing, he realized, was a kind of gift, not because it was extraordinary, but because it was here, because he was here to notice it. In the afternoon, an older monk named Daigo came to the temple. Daigo lived in a hermitage further up the mountain and would visit once each season to share tea and conversation. The two men sat together in the small kitchen, the kettle humming on the brazier. Daigo poured the tea with slow, deliberate movements. Steam rose between them. Outside, the light was beginning to soften toward evening. "You seem peaceful," Daigo said, his voice like gravel smoothed by water. Sohan smiled. "This morning, a mouse came into the hall." Daigo raised his eyebrows, waiting. "It sat very close to me," Sohan continued, "groomed its face, didn't know I was there, and I thought, here is another one trying to live, doing its best." Daigo nodded slowly. He sipped his tea. "And this made you grateful?" "Yes," Sohan said. "For some reason, yes." They sat in silence for a while. The kettle hissed softly. The light through the window turned gold, then amber, then the color of persimmons. "Gratitude is strange," Daigo said eventually. "It doesn't come from getting what we want. It comes from seeing what's already here." Sohan thought about this, about the mouse, about the smoothness of the broom handle, about the way the evening light fell across the floorboards in bars of gold. "Yes," he said quietly, "I think that's right." That night, after Daigo had gone, Sohan sat again in the meditation hall. The darkness was complete now. No moon, only the faint glow of starlight through the open doorway. He listened to the silence, to the tiny sounds within it, the settling of wood, the whisper of wind, the far-off call of some night bird. And he felt it again, that warmth in his chest, that sense of being held by something vast and kind. He thought of the mouse, wherever it was now, curled in its nest in the wall. He hoped it was warm. He hoped it had found enough to eat. Before he rose to go to his sleeping quarters, he bowed again, to the darkness, to the silence, to the mouse, to the day that had passed and the night that now held him. "Thank you," he thought, though he could not have said exactly what he was thanking or why, only that it felt true. And somewhere in the darkness, the temple breathed with him. In a village near the sea, there lived an old woman named Koto. She was known by everyone, though she was not remarkable in any obvious way. She did not run a business or hold any position of authority. She simply lived in a small house at the edge of the village near where the road curved toward the harbour, and each morning she would sit on her wooden porch and watch the day begin. Koto had lived a long life. She had been married once, years ago, to a fisherman who had been lost at sea in a storm. She had raised 2 children, both of whom had moved to distant cities and visited rarely. She had worked for many years mending nets and sewing clothes for the villagers. Now, in her old age, her hands were too stiff for fine work, so she spent her days quietly, moving slowly through simple tasks. But there was something about Koto that people noticed, a lightness, a kind of ease. When you passed her house and she was sitting on her porch, she would smile and nod, and somehow you would feel lighter too. One spring morning, a traveling merchant stopped in the village. His name was Hiroshi, and he was tired. He had been on the road for many weeks, moving from town to town with his cart of goods, fabric, pottery, tools, small luxuries. The work was hard, and lately he had begun to feel the weight of it, the endless walking, the uncertainty, the loneliness of sleeping in unfamiliar places. He set up his cart in the village square and began to call out his wares, but his heart wasn't in it. The villagers came and looked, some bought, but Hiroshi felt empty. What was the point of all this, he wondered? Just to sell things, to move on, to sell more things somewhere else. In the afternoon, as the heat grew, he decided to walk. He left his cart with a villager who agreed to watch it and wandered toward the edge of the village where the road met the sea. That's when he saw Koto sitting on her porch with a cup of tea, watching the light on the water. "Good afternoon, grandmother," Hiroshi said, using the polite term for an elder. Koto turned and smiled. "Good afternoon, traveler. You look tired." "I am," Hiroshi admitted. He didn't know why he was being honest with this stranger, but something in her face invited it. "Sit if you like," Koto said, gesturing to the step beside her. "The view is better when you're not standing." Hiroshi sat. The wood was warm from the sun. In front of them, the sea stretched out, calm and blue, with small fishing boats bobbing in the distance. They sat in silence for a while. Koto sipped her tea. Hiroshi watched the boats. "Do you live alone?" Hiroshi asked eventually. "I do," Koto said. "My husband passed many years ago. My children are far away, but I'm not lonely." Hiroshi looked at her. "How is that possible?" Koto smiled. "I have good company." "Who?" She gestured around her. "The morning, the sea, the birds, the people who pass by, this porch, this cup." She lifted her tea. "All of it keeps me company." Hiroshi frowned. "But those things aren't people." "No," Koto agreed, "but they're here, and they're kind in their way." Hiroshi didn't understand, but he didn't want to argue. He sat quietly, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face, the faint breeze from the water. After a while, Koto spoke again. "What do you carry in your cart?" "Fabric mostly, some pottery, small things." "Useful things." "I suppose," Hiroshi said, "but it feels pointless sometimes. I sell something, I move on, I sell something else. What does it matter?" Koto considered this. "Did anyone buy from you today?" "A few people." "What did they buy?" Hiroshi thought. One woman bought fabric for a dress, a man bought a new pot, someone else bought a tool for woodworking. Koto nodded. The woman will make a dress, maybe for herself, maybe for her daughter. She'll wear it and feel beautiful or proud. The man will cook in that pot. He'll make soup for his family. The woodworker will build something, a shelf, a box, a table, and all of those things will be used and loved. You carried those possibilities with you. You made them available. That's not pointless. Hiroshi was quiet. He hadn't thought of it that way. But it's so small, he said finally. Just a pot, just some fabric. Yes, Koto said. Small, but real. And who's to say small isn't enough? She finished her tea and set the cup down gently on the porch. The sound it made was soft, a small ceramic click. I've been sitting on this porch for years, Koto said. I watch the sea, I watch the birds, I watch people pass by. It's a small life, but I'm grateful for it, because it's mine, because it's here. Hiroshi looked at her, this old woman with her weathered face and her slow smile, and he felt something in him shift, a loosening, a softness. How did you learn that? He asked. Koto shrugged. Time, I think, and loss. When you lose what you thought you couldn't live without, and then you discover you're still here, still breathing, still able to taste tea and feel the sun, you start to pay attention differently. The light was beginning to change now, the sun lowering toward the horizon. The sea turned gold. Stay for dinner if you like, Koto said. It's nothing fancy, just rice and vegetables, but there's enough. Hiroshi stayed. They ate together on the porch as the sky turned pink, then purple, then deep blue. The food was simple, but it tasted good. The rice was hot and slightly sticky. The vegetables were seasoned with sesame and salt. After dinner, Hiroshi thanked Koto and walked back to the village square. His cart was still there, waiting. He looked at it differently now, not as a burden, but as a collection of possibilities, small things that would become part of people's lives. That night, he slept better than he had in weeks. In the morning, before he left the village, he went back to Koto's house. She was already on her porch, cup of tea in hand, watching the sunrise. Thank you, Hiroshi said. Koto smiled. For what? For the company, for the dinner, for, I don't know, reminding me. Reminding you of what? Hiroshi thought. That small things matter. Koto nodded. They do. Safe travels, friend. Hiroshi bowed and walked back to his cart. As he pushed it out of the village and onto the road, he found himself noticing things he usually missed. The way the morning light caught the dew on the grass, the sound of his cartwheels on the packed earth, the weight of the goods he carried, not a burden, but a purpose. And he felt grateful for the road, for the work, for the old woman on the porch who had shared her small, abundant life with him. The sea behind him glittered in the distance, and the day stretched out ahead, full of unknown moments and simple gifts. There was a young woman named Amy who worked as a servant in a merchant's household in a prosperous town. Her days were long and full of tasks, washing, cooking, mending, cleaning. She woke before dawn and often did not finish her work until well after dark. The merchant's family was not unkind, but they were busy and distracted, absorbed in their own affairs. They rarely spoke to Amy beyond giving instructions. She moved through the house like a shadow, present but unseen. Amy did not complain. She was grateful to have work, to have a place to sleep and food to eat. But sometimes late at night, when the house was finally quiet and she lay on her thin mat in the small room behind the kitchen, she felt a hollowness in her chest. a loneliness that had no name. One day, the merchant's wife asked Amy to go to the market to buy vegetables for the evening meal. Amy took the coins in the basket and walked through the streets, grateful for the chance to be outside, to feel the sun on her face. The market was crowded and noisy. Vendors called out their wares, people haggled and laughed. Amy moved through the stalls, picking vegetables carefully, checking each one for freshness as she had been taught. At the vegetable stall, the seller was an old man with a deeply lined face and hands stained green from handling produce all day. He was arranging carrots in neat rows when Amy approached. "Good morning, grandfather," she said politely. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning, daughter. What do you need today?" "Carrots, radishes, and greens, please." He selected the vegetables carefully, holding each one up to the light, checking for firmness. As he placed them in her basket, he said, "These are good ones. They'll make a fine soup." "Thank you," Amy said, counting out the coins. As she turned to leave, the old man spoke again. "You look tired, daughter." Amy paused, surprised. No one had noticed her tiredness before. No one had looked at her long enough to see it. "I'm all right," she said softly. The old man nodded. "Still, it's good to rest when you can, even for a moment." He gestured to a small stool beside his stall. "Sit, if you like. The vegetables won't mind waiting." Amy hesitated. She had other errands. The merchant's wife would be expecting her back. But something in the old man's kindness made her want to stay, just for a breath. She sat. The old man went back to arranging his carrots. The market noise continued around them. The calls of vendors, the shuffle of feet, the clatter of coins. "I've been selling vegetables here for 40 years, the old man said, not looking at her, just talking as he worked. "People come and go. Some are kind, some are rude. Most are in a hurry. But I've learned something." Amy waited. "Everyone is carrying something," he said. "Some burden, some worry. You can see it if you look, in their faces, their shoulders, the way they hold themselves." He picked up a radish, brushed the dirt from it gently. "So I try to be kind, not because I think it will fix anything, but because sometimes a small kindness is like a rest, a place to set the burden down just for a moment." Amy felt something warm in her throat. Tears, maybe, though she didn't let them come. "That's kind of you," she said quietly. The old man shrugged. "I'm grateful I can do it. Grateful I'm still here, still able to see people, to offer something small, even if it's just good vegetables and a place to sit." They sat in silence for a moment. The noise of the market seemed to soften, to fall into the background. "I should go," Amy said, finally standing. "But thank you for the vegetables and for this." The old man smiled. "Come back any time, daughter. The stall is always here." Amy walked back through the market, the basket heavy on her arm, but she felt lighter somehow, as if the old man's words had opened something in her, a small window through which light could enter. That evening, as she prepared the soup, she found herself paying attention in a new way to the feel of the vegetables in her hands, cool and firm, to the sound of the knife on the cutting board, rhythmic and steady, to the scent of the greens as they wilted in the hot water. The merchant's family ate the soup without comment. They did not thank her, did not notice her, but Amy realized she didn't need them to. She had noticed. She had been present with the carrots, the radishes, the greens. She had been grateful for the old man's kindness, for the moment of rest. In the days that followed, Amy began to practice a kind of gratitude that surprised her. She thanked the water as she drew it from the well, cold and clear. She thanked the broom as she swept for its reliability, for the way it always did its work. She thanked the small room where she slept for its safety, for its quiet. No one knew she was doing this. It was private, silent, but it changed something in her. She began to notice other people too. The way the cook's assistant always hummed while she worked, a tuneless but cheerful sound. The way the merchant's young son would sometimes leave drawings on the kitchen table, gifts for no one in particular. The way the evening light came through the window at a certain angle, turning the steam from the cooking pots into gold. One day, she returned to the market. She didn't need vegetables, but she went anyway, just to see the old man. He was there, as always, arranging his produce with care. "Good morning, grandfather," she said. He looked up and his face brightened. "Ah, daughter, good morning. Do you need vegetables today?" "No," Amy said. "I just came to say thank you for the kindness you showed me. It helped more than you know." The old man looked puzzled. "I didn't do anything special." "You saw me," Amy said. "That was enough." The old man's eyes softened. He nodded slowly. "Well, I'm glad and I'm grateful you came back to tell me. That's a gift too, you know, knowing that something small mattered." They smiled at each other, two people in a crowded market, holding a moment of recognition between them. Amy walked home through the busy streets, and the world seemed somehow brighter. The same streets, the same buildings, the same work waiting for her, but different too, because she was seeing it now, seeing the kindness in small places, the gifts hidden in ordinary moments, and she was grateful. High in the northern mountains, where winter arrived early and stayed late, there was a monastery known for its silence. The monks who lived there had taken a vow to speak only when necessary, and as a result, the monastery was a place of deep quiet. Even the wind seemed to move more softly there, as if in respect. Among these monks was one named Genshin. He was middle-aged, neither young nor old, and had lived at the monastery for 15 years. He had come seeking peace and had found it, though not in the way he had expected. The monastery was simple: stone walls, wooden beams, a courtyard open to the sky. In winter, snow would pile high in the corners, and the monks would move through their days like dark brushstrokes on white paper, quiet, deliberate, minimal. Genshin's work at the monastery was to tend the fire in the main hall. This was a sacred task, for the fire was kept burning continuously, day and night, year after year. It was said the fire had not gone out in over 200 years. Each morning, Genshin would wake in the darkness and go to the hall. He would check the fire, add wood if needed, adjust the logs to ensure good airflow. Then he would sit beside it for a while, warming his hands, watching the flames. He had done this every morning for 15 years. At first, it had seemed monotonous, just a task, necessary but unremarkable. But over time, something had shifted. He had begun to pay attention, to really look at the fire. He noticed that no two mornings were the same. The flames moved differently depending on the wood, the air, the season. Sometimes they were bright and active, leaping and crackling. Sometimes they were low and meditative, glowing coals with only the faintest flicker. He noticed the heat, how how it radiated not just outward but upward, rising in waves he could almost see. He noticed the smell of the wood as it burned, pine in summer, cedar in winter, sometimes the sweet scent of cherry when they had trimmed the trees in the orchard. He noticed his own breath visible in the cold morning air, mixing with the smoke. Two kinds of breath, his and the fire's. One winter morning, after a heavy snowfall, Genshin came to the hall as usual. The fire was low, just coals, and he carefully added new wood, arranging the logs in a way that would allow air to flow beneath them. As he worked, he became aware of a deep gratitude. It rose in him without thought, without reason. Just a feeling, warm and full, like the fire itself. He was grateful for the wood, for the trees that had grown and been cut and dried and stacked, for the monks who had done that work, for the fire that had been tended by monks before him for 2 centuries, each one doing this same small task, adding wood, watching flames, keeping the continuity alive. He was grateful for the cold because it made the warmth mean something, for the darkness because it made the light precious, for the silence because it allowed him to hear the fire's voice, the snap of sap, the sigh of burning wood, the deep hum of heat. He sat down beside the fire and wept, not from sadness, but from the fullness of it, the strange abundance of this simple moment. Later that morning, during the communal breakfast, another monk named Jaquin noticed Genshin's expression. It was softer than usual, more open. During their brief period of spoken reflection after the meal, Jaquin asked quietly, "Are you well, brother?" Genshin nodded. Then, because words were rare and therefore chosen carefully, he said, "I am grateful." Jaquin waited in case there was more. "For the fire," Genshin said, "for the work, for being here." Jaquin smiled slightly. He understood. He bowed his head in acknowledgement. That winter was long and harsh. The snow piled higher than Genshin had ever seen it. Food stores ran low. The cold seeped into everything, made every task more difficult. But Genshin's gratitude did not diminish. If anything, it grew. He was grateful for the extra blankets the monastery provided, for the hot barley tea they shared in the evenings, for the way the other monks moved through the hardship without complaint, each one doing their part. He was grateful for the hunger, because it reminded him that fullness was not guaranteed, for the cold, because it taught him to appreciate warmth, for the difficulty, because it showed him what he was capable of enduring. One night, the fire did go out. It had never happened in Genshin's 15 years, and it shook him. He woke to tend it in the early hours and found only cold ash. For a moment, he felt panic, the continuity broken, the tradition ended. But then he remembered what the abbot had once said. Even endings are part of the cycle. Even loss has its place. Genshin went to the kitchen and found a coal from the cooking fire still glowing. He carried it carefully back to the hall and placed it in the hearth with new kindling. He blew on it gently, his breath and the coal's heat meeting. The kindling caught, flames appeared, the fire was alive again. Genshin sat back and felt it again. Gratitude for the kitchen fire that had provided the coal, for the kindling that had caught, for his breath, for the second chance. The fire was new now, but it was still the fire. The continuity was not in the specific flames, but in the tending, in the care, in the attention. When he told the abbot what had happened, the old man nodded. You relit it yourself? Yes. Good. Then the tradition continues, not because the fire never went out, but because you knew how to begin again. Genshin bowed. That spring, when the snow finally melted and the courtyard once again showed patches of stone, Genshin stood outside after tending the morning fire. The air was still cold, but the sun was brighter, warmer. He could hear water dripping from the roof, snow melting, the first sounds of change. He looked at his hands, roughened from handling wood, and felt grateful for them, for their ability to work, to hold, to tend. He looked at the sky, pale blue and vast, and felt grateful for its distance, its indifference, its beauty. He looked at the monastery walls, cold stone worn smooth by weather and time, and felt grateful for their solidity, for the shelter they provided, for the lineage of monks who had built them, lived within them, kept the practice alive. And he understood then that gratitude was not a feeling you summoned. It was a way of seeing, a choice to notice what was here, what had been given, what continued despite everything. The fire in the hall burned on. Genshin returned to it, as he always did, to sit beside it and keep it company. And in the stillness, in the warmth, in the simple, endless repetition of care, he found everything he needed. Along a river that wound through farmland and forest, there was a small inn run by a woman named Tomo. The inn had been in her family for 3 generations, passed from her grandmother to her mother to her. It was not grand, just 6 rooms, a communal dining area, and a small garden overlooking the water. Travelers would stop there on their way to larger towns, or merchants heading upriver with goods, or occasionally a pilgrim on their way to a distant temple. Tomo welcomed them all with the same quiet efficiency. She cooked simple meals, kept the rooms clean, and asked few questions. Tomo was in her 50s now. Her hair was streaked with grey, and her hands bore the marks of decades of work, small scars, calluses, the slight ache of old age beginning to settle in her joints. She had never married. The inn had been her life. One evening in late summer, a guest arrived just before dusk. He was an older man, thin and tired-looking, with a walking stick and a small pack. He said his name was Ryota, and he asked if there was a room for the night. Of course, Tomo said. She showed him to a room on the 2nd floor, overlooking the river. Dinner will be ready soon. Please rest if you'd like. Ryota thanked her and set down his pack. He stood at the window for a long time, watching the river turn gold in the evening light. At dinner, there were 3 other guests, 2 merchants traveling together and a young woman on her way to visit family. They ate together at the long wooden table, passing dishes, speaking little. Tomo served them rice, grilled fish, pickled vegetables, miso soup. The food was simple, but prepared with care. After the others had gone to their rooms, Ryota remained at the table, sipping tea. Tomo was cleaning up, moving quietly between the kitchen and the dining area. "May I ask you something?" Ryota said. Tomoe looked up. "Of course." "Have you always lived here, at this inn?" "Yes," Tomo said. "My whole life." "You've never wanted to leave, to see other places?" Tomo considered this. She set down the bowl she was holding and sat across from him. "When I was young, yes," she said. "I thought I would leave. I thought there must be something more exciting, more interesting, somewhere else. But you stayed." "I stayed." Tomo poured herself a cup of tea from the pot. "At first, because my mother needed help. Then because she grew ill and I couldn't leave. Then she passed away, and by then, I realized I didn't want to leave. This had become my life. It was enough. Ryota nodded slowly. Do you ever regret it? No, Tomo said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. I used to think I would, but now I'm grateful. For what? Tomo looked around the room. The worn wooden table, polished by decades of use. The window that looked out onto the river. The quiet. For this place, she said. For the people who pass through. For the work. For the river. She paused, then continued. When I was younger, I thought life had to be big to matter. I thought I had to do something important, go somewhere special. But I've learned that life isn't big. It's made of small moments, cooking a meal, sweeping a floor, watching the river change with the seasons. And those moments are enough, more than enough. Ryota was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I've spent my whole life traveling, going from place to place, never staying anywhere long. I thought that was freedom, but lately I've been wondering, maybe I was just running. Maybe I missed what you found, the small things. Tomo smiled gently. It's not too late to notice them. That night, after Ryota had gone to his room, Tomo stood at the doorway to the garden, looking out at the river. The moon was half full, casting silver light on the water. She could hear the gentle sound of the current, constant and soothing. She thought about all the people who had stayed at the inn over the years. Hundreds, maybe thousands, each one passing through, carrying their own stories, their own burdens, and she had been here, steady, offering them a place to rest. It was a small thing, but it had been her thing, her gift. She felt grateful for it, for the privilege of being a kind of anchor, a place of constancy in the flow. The next morning, Ryota came down early. Tomo was already in the kitchen preparing breakfast. Thank you, he said, for the conversation last night. It helped me. I'm glad, Tomo said. I think I'll stay another day if the room is available. I'd like to rest, to watch the river. The room is yours, Tomo said. Ryota spent the day in the garden, sitting on the bench beneath the willow tree, watching the water. Tomo saw him there whenever she passed by, still, attentive, present. That evening, at dinner, he seemed lighter, more at ease. When he left the following morning, he bowed deeply to Tomo. You've given me something I didn't know I needed, he said. What's that? A reminder that peace isn't something you find by going somewhere. It's something you allow by stopping. Tomo bowed in return. Safe travels, friend. After he left, she went about her day as usual. She washed the dishes, swept the floors, prepared the rooms for the next guests. But she moved through it all with a heightened awareness, a soft attention. She was grateful for the water that washed the dishes cool and plentiful, for the broom that swept cleanly, leaving smooth wood behind, for the sun that came through the windows, warming the rooms, for the garden, green and thriving, for the river, always there, always flowing. She was grateful for the guests who came and went, each one a small encounter, a brief connection, for the work that kept her hands busy and her mind clear, for the inn itself, old and creaking, full of memory and life. That night she stood once more at the doorway to the garden. The moon was brighter now, nearly full. The river glittered. She thought of Ryota, wherever he was on the road, and hoped he had found some of the peace he was seeking. She thought of all the guests who had stayed here, all the meals she had cooked, all the rooms she had prepared, and she thought of her mother, her grandmother, the women who had tended this place before her, who had given her this gift of a quiet life, a steady life, a life shaped by small acts of care. Thank you, she thought, to them, to the river, to the night, to the years that had passed and the years that remained. And the river kept flowing, carrying the moonlight with it, always moving, always here. In a small mountain village there lived a potter named Isamu. He was not the best potter in the region, nor the most famous. His work was simple: bowls, cups, plates, made for daily use, not for display. But he had been doing this work for 30 years, and he did it with a kind of steady devotion. Isamu's workshop was a small building behind his house, with large windows that let in the northern light. Inside, there were shelves lined with vessels in various stages of completion. Some were still soft clay, waiting to be shaped. Some were leather hard, ready for trimming. Some were bisque-fired, waiting for glaze. The room smelled of earth and dust and the faint metallic tang of the clay. Every morning, Isamu would come to the workshop just after dawn. He would prepare the clay, wedging it to remove air bubbles, then sit at his wheel. The wheel was old, powered by a foot pedal, and it had a rhythm that his body knew without thinking. Push down, spin up, hands on the clay, centering, opening, pulling up the walls. He had made thousands of bowls, maybe tens of thousands, each one slightly different, but all from the same basic process. Sometimes people would ask him if he ever got bored doing the same thing over and over. No, he would say simply. Each one is new. One autumn, a young man named Kenji came to the village. He was an apprentice potter traveling to learn from different masters. He had heard of Isamu, not because Isamu was famous, but because someone had told Kenji that Isamu made honest pots. Kenji wasn't sure what that meant, but he wanted to find out. He arrived at Isamu's workshop on a cool morning and asked if he could study with him for a season. Isamu looked at the young man, eager, restless, full of ambition, and nodded. "You can stay, but I don't teach in the usual way. You'll work beside me, watch if you want to, but mostly you'll make pots." Kenji agreed, though he was a little disappointed. He had hoped for lessons, for explanations, for insights into technique. Instead, Isamu simply gave him clay and showed him the wheel. For the first few weeks, Kenji struggled. He tried to make bowls like Isamu's, but they came out lopsided or too thin or collapsed on the wheel. He grew frustrated. "How do you make them so even?" Kenji asked one day. Isamu, who was trimming a bowl at the time, didn't look up. "I pay attention." "To what?" "To the clay, to how it feels, to what it needs." Kenji frowned. That wasn't helpful. He wanted technique, not philosophy. But he kept working, and slowly, over days and weeks, something began to shift. He stopped trying so hard. He stopped thinking about the bowl he wanted to make and started feeling the clay under his hands. Its wetness, its density, its resistance. He began to notice the rhythm of the wheel, how it carried the clay in a circle, and how his hands could guide it without forcing. He began to notice his breath, how it slowed when he was centered, how it quickened when he was tense. One morning he made a bowl that surprised him. It wasn't perfect, but it was right, balanced, alive. He looked over at Isamu, who had been watching quietly. "That one is good," Isamu said. Kenji felt a flush of pride. Then Isamu said, "Now make 100 more." Kenji deflated. 100? Yes, each one the same but different, each one made with attention, then you'll understand. So Kenji made bowls. one after another. At first he counted them, eager to reach 100, but after a while he stopped counting. The number didn't matter. What mattered was the clay, the wheel, the movement of his hands. He began to feel something he'd never felt before, a kind of gratitude for the clay which was patient and responsive, for the wheel which turned steadily, endlessly, offering him chance after chance, for Isamu, who said little but whose quiet presence was a kind of teaching. One evening, as the light was fading and they were cleaning the workshop, Kenji asked, "Why do you do this? Make the same pots day after day?" Isamu rinsed his hands in the basin, watching the clay-colored water swirl. "Because people need bowls, and I know how to make them. But don't you want to make something more?" Isamu smiled slightly. "What's more than a bowl? You eat from it, drink from it. It holds what sustains you. What could be more important than that?" Kenji didn't have an answer. "I'm grateful," Isamu continued, "that I have this skill, that I can make something useful, that people trust my work enough to use it in their daily lives. That's enough for me." Kenji thought about this. He thought about the bowls he had made, how each one had taught him something, how the process itself had become a kind of meditation, a way of being present. "I think I understand," he said quietly. By the end of the season, Kenji had made far more than 100 bowls. He had lost count, but he had also found something, a respect for the work, a gratitude for the process, a recognition that making something simple with care was its own reward. When it was time for him to leave, he thanked Isamu. "What will you do now?" Isamu asked. "I'll keep making pots," Kenji said. "Maybe I'll travel more, learn from others, but I'll remember what you showed me." "What did I show you?" "That the work itself is the teaching, that attention is everything, that gratitude makes the work sacred." Isamu nodded. "Good, then you learned." After Kenji left, Isamu returned to his wheel. He had a new order to fill, 20 bowls for a restaurant in the next town. He prepared the clay, centered it on the wheel, and began. His hands moved with the ease of decades. The clay rose smoothly under his touch. The bowl took shape, simple and strong. As he worked, he felt it again, that quiet gratitude for the clay, for his hands still capable, for the wheel still turning, for the people who would eat from these bowls, who would hold them and use them and perhaps appreciate them, for the work that had been his life, for the simplicity of it, for the endless repetition that was, somehow, never boring, always new, always enough. The workshop grew dark around him, but he kept working, the wheel spinning, the clay rising, the gratitude a warmth in his chest that needed no words. And now, as the night deepens and the stories settle, there is nothing left but rest. You've traveled with me through mountain temples and riverside inns, through market stalls and pottery workshops. You've walked with monks and merchants, with old women on porches and young servants in busy houses. You've seen how gratitude lives in the smallest things, a mouse grooming its face, a bowl of rice, a fire tended with care. These stories are not asking you to do anything. They're simply here, like the river, like the moon. They're here to remind you that the world is full of quiet gifts, if we're willing to see them. As you lie here now, in the safety of your bed, in the kindness of the dark, you might notice what holds you, the pillow beneath your head, the warmth of the blanket, the softness of the breath moving in and out of your body. You might feel grateful for the day that has passed, even if it was difficult, for the fact that you are here now at rest. There is nothing more you need to do tonight. The stories have done their work. The world will continue without your watching. The night will hold you. Let yourself drift now. Let the images fade. The temple, the sea, the fire, the river, the potter's wheel. Let them dissolve like mist in morning light. And if gratitude arises, let it be soft. Let it be simple. Let it be the warmth in your chest as you fall into sleep, held by something vast and kind. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Sleep well.